Hello, this is Shannon Jackson, the Broken Arrow Freshman Academy Librarian. Today I'll be reading the first chapter of Wolfpack by Amelia Brunskill. Wolfpack is one of the Oklahoma Library Association's 2025 Sequoia books. Please enjoy. Other than the road that winds along the west, Havenwood's boundaries are not well defined. To the north are the woods, to the east the river, and in neither do outsiders ever set foot. The one fence we have is small and made of wood, serving only to protect our orchard from overly bold deer. The porous nature of Havenwood is intentional. Joseph picked this place knowing it had been waiting to be reborn into a vision, an idea that could flow like water. The 9 of us were not always as we are now, a group, a collective. We were merely part of the larger scrum, toddlers to almost full-grown, housed in the children's lodge. Then, 4 years ago, a blizzard came rushing through and toppled a massive oak tree. The tree ripped through the lodge's roof, its branches extending down as if to caress our faces. Only the youngest of the children cried out in fear. The rest simply stared at the suddenly visible sky, waiting for a message from God. The blizzard continued to rage for days and days, and the 9 of us girls, then aged 10 through 14, were placed in a shed-like structure previously used for storage. It was supposed to be a temporary solution, yet soon we began to think of the structure as our place, our cabin, and we found that we liked being away from the boys, the small children, being able to do as we pleased, be that slipping gently into silence at the end of the day or talking long into the night. So we decided that we would be loyal, not just to Havenwood, but also to one another. And we shed our old names like snakeskins and tied ourselves together by giving ourselves new names, ones from the natural world. Daisy, Fern, Ivy, Laurel, Oleana, Poppy. Rose, Violet, Willow. And when the elders finally summoned us to rejoin the others, things had shifted in a way that they had not seen coming, in a way that they did not approve, for together we felt, for the very first time, that we could say no. Violet. At times, Violet has a sixth sense that draws her attention to things not noticed by others. This morning, though, she feels nothing but the simple pleasure of being outside in the shivery air, alone with her thoughts and her bees. She hums quietly to herself as she tucks the gloves into her sleeves, adjusts her beekeeper's veil, and picks up the smoker. She does this all despite secretly believing it's no longer necessary. She's developed immunity due to frequent initial stings, and besides, the bees are used to her now. Still, she must be careful of the example she sets. The children lust after the honeycomb, so any hint that the bees do not warrant caution could swiftly lead to tears. As she walks towards the hives, she feels a small smile grow on her face, and her heart rate slow. She feels connected to the bees, has dreams where she is winged and aloft, soaring above the compound, seeking the sweetness of flowers. Sometimes in these dreams, she is joined by wide-eyed, tiny Daisy, or Titan-haired Poppy, or, well, there are other more enticing and less serene versions of this dream. A bee lands on the sleeve of her suit and starts to crawl up toward her cuff. She pauses and watches it, amused by its dogged progress. Some describe bees as automatons, attuned only to their prescribed role and their queen's bidding. Yet this bee seems driven, not by the promise of nectar or pollen, but by simple curiosity. After it flies off, she continues on to the hives, where she applies a soft wave of smoke. She is reaching to pull out a frame when something on the ground catches her eye. A small pile of dead bees. They'd stung something, attacked, their efforts leaving their stingers gone, their lower bodies torn open. She steels herself for the aftermath of an overnight siege. Yet when she pulls out a frame, all she finds are smoke-dazed bees, blissfully unaware that any larger danger may have passed by. Ivy. Ivy wakes with the faint echo of an unexpected sound still ringing in her head, one that caused her to briefly surface hours earlier. She tries to coax it back, but it has vanished, shy. She is, as per often, running behind, and some of the girls have already left. Oleana is not there to braid her hair, and Rose is also away, probably off badgering Violet to give her some honeycomb. Those remaining are almost dressed, Laurel lacing her boots, Daisy pinning up her hair into a pale wreath, Willow buttoning up a heavy cardigan. Ivy had meant to wash this morning, but the lodge will be too crowded now, and Willow's cardigan indicates a day too cold to use the outdoor shower. "Could you please hand me some clothes, some socks?" Ivy tosses out to the room with a wide, lazy smile, hoping to snare something into allowing her to avoid exposing her bare feet to the chilled air. Usually she might have had luck with Willow or Daisy, but Laurel sends a stern look Ivy's way. Just get up, it's almost breakfast." The others then quickly avert their gaze, not wanting to cross the line Laurel has drawn, but also knowing that, like her namesake, Ivy has a way of encircling people, with her smile, her voice, wrapping around them until they confuse her desires with their own. Ivy reluctantly admits defeat, and as she rises, she asks, "Were any of you woken up earlier by an odd sound?" The other girls look at one another and shrug. "I don't think so," Daisy says. Willow pauses, her eyes solemn. "I heard a whiskey jack quite early. Might it have been that?" Ivy shakes her head. The sound had been flinty, she thinks, metallic even, not the call of a bird. Laura looks impatient, as if she suspects not entirely incorrectly that Ivy is now simply stalling. And so while it is tempting to press the matter further, she is hungry, and so she lets it go. As we walk to breakfast, the thick mud alongside the path speaks of heavy overnight rain, and we are surrounded by a thick mist that transforms Havenwood's usual crisp beauty into a landscape painted with fatly dabbed brushstrokes. Yesterday was much warmer, brighter, and the shift leaves us disoriented. It's Tuesday, so as we enter the main hall, we expect to be greeted by the smell of warm butter and salt, to see women in aprons behind the long oak table, wielding gleaming silver ladles, ready to pour gravy onto steaming biscuits. Instead, there are no women in aprons, and all we see on the table are bowls of cereal, dried fruit, and yogurt. There are murmurs about a broken oven confirmed by the sight of Fern, already seated at our table, looking woebegone, her arms for once not dusted with flour. Oleana arrives just before the morning prayer, and as she scrapes her pale hair away from her face, we see swirls of brown ink decorating the backs of her hands. We try not to be envious. We know it's hardest for Laurel. We know she was hoping to be invited to join Joseph's prayer circle, but clearly her hope has gone unmet. Fern sighs. "I was going to make pies today," perhaps to provide a needed distraction, and the loss of these pies is indeed a diversion, a turned knife in our culinary wound. "What kind of pies?" Violet asks. "Apple and blackberry," Fern replies. "Some meat pies, too. There's a potential coming today." We nod. Joseph likes us to greet potentials with a feast to show off our bounty. He'll be disappointed that the ovens have let us down. When Poppy shows the potential around, she'll have to charm them enough to render the pies unnecessary. When everyone is seated, they can briefly be heard the soft ripple of almost 200 people, adjusting in their seats, before a perfect hush falls over the room, as Joseph takes his place at the podium. It's true that Joseph's power stems from how he founded Havenwood, how he took his millions earned in tech and created a place of salvation here. But it also comes from how he knows everything about us, even things we barely know ourselves. How he looks like a Viking king with a chiseled jaw and silver mane. Like all mornings, Joseph thanks us for our work, thanks God for the abundance of the harvest, thanks the flowers and the bees, the weather, the sun and stars. When he stops, we lower our heads, observe 2 minutes of perfect silence in which not so much as a fork is shifted. When he rings the silver bell, we all raise our heads, except Daisy, whose neck briefly stays bent, her eyelids closed. It's understandable. The abrupt change in weather has fogged our senses, and staying upright takes more effort than usual. Surely this is the reason why only some of us notice the empty chair at our table, and no one comments on it. All right, this has been the first chapter of Wolfpack. Hope to see you in the library to read this more.